Years after Angelina Jolie divorced Brad Pitt amid his shocking addiction and abuse rumors, the truth about Brad Pitt has come to light at last in bombshell court documents that finally give us the full picture. And it is so much worse than we thought. Brad and Angelina honestly could not have come from more different backgrounds. Brad was born into your typical blue-collar Midwest family. His dad ran a trucking company, his mom was a school counselor, and they're still married to this day. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Angelina was born into a broken acting family. Her father, John Voight, left her mother, Marceline Bertrand, when Angelina was a baby, forcing her mom to abandon her own dreams of acting to raise her 2 children alone. What you need to know right now is that despite their very different upbringings, by the time they finally met on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2005, what they did connect over was their passion for entrepreneurship and philanthropy. And it seemed like they were really aligned in where they wanted to be in life, especially when it came to kids. Angelina adopted her first son, Maddox, all the way back in 2002, years before she met Brad on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And then in 2005, a year after meeting Brad, she adopted her second child, Zahara. Reportedly, Brad was very involved with Angelina's kids from the beginning, traveling with them and eventually adopting both Maddox and Zahara himself in 2006. You know what also happened in 2006? Brad and Angelina had their first biological child, Shiloh. Brad and Angelina really loved kids. And I say that confidently because the next year they adopted another child, Pax, and the year after that, in 2008, they completed their family with biological twins, Vivian and Knox. Even while having all these kids, they were both still working on screen in big blockbusters and off screen doing advocacy work and buying a vineyard in 2008. The French vineyard was a happy place for the Jolie Pitt family. They would fly to France often with the kids. It was a place they loved to celebrate holidays and special events. Brad and Angelina even tied the knot there in 2014 after waiting years to get hitched. After their wedding, they starred in their first movie together since Mr. and Mrs. Smith, By the Sea. And when Angelina decided to remove her ovaries and fallopian tubes amid a cancer scare in 2015, she said, "I called my husband in France, who was on a plane within hours." However, everything suddenly changed one fateful day in 2016. The family of 8 hopped on a plane in France after presumably spending time at their favorite vineyard getaway. And by the time they landed in Los Angeles, their family was irreparably fractured.
Big news out of Hollywood. After 12 years together and 6 children, Angelina Jolie is filing for divorce from Brad Pitt.
The reports were vague at first as rumors kind of swirled around. Meanwhile, Brad's team insisted it was nothing more than an intoxicated argument with Angelina and one of his children. Angelina stayed silent on all of it beyond getting full custody of the kids. Brad moved next door, sobered up, and got supervised visitation rights with the younger children, and life seemingly moved on. I think that it's safe to say Angelina really truly wanted her kids to maintain a relationship with their dad. But there were more storm clouds on the horizon. In 2020, 4 years after the family flew back from France, his 16-year-old son, Pax, took to Instagram in a private friends and family post. "Happy Father's Day to this world-class asshole. You time and time again prove yourself to be a terrible and despicable person. You have no consideration or empathy toward your 4 youngest children who tremble in fear when in your presence. You will never understand the damage you have done to my family because you are incapable of doing so. You have made the lives of those closest to me a constant hell. You may tell yourself and the world whatever you want, but the truth will come to light someday." God. Definitely, there's some things in there that sound like their family has faced more than just that one bad flight with Brad. In 2021, it was reported that the oldest Jolie Pitt child, Maddox, had allegedly dropped Pitt from his last name on anything that wasn't a legal document. And in 2024, Brad's youngest daughter, Vivian, credited herself as simply Vivian Jolie in the playbill for The Outsiders. Shiloh had reportedly been a daddy's girl, and there were even reports in April of 2024 saying she had decided to move in with Brad next door to spend more time with him. However, only a month later in May, 3 days after Shiloh's 18th birthday, Shiloh filed to legally change her name to only Shiloh Jolie. Something is happening even recently. Well, it's all coming out now, surprisingly because of, you guessed it, the vineyard. So in 2021, Angelina decided to sell her shares of Chateau Miraval. And here's the problem. When they first bought the vineyard, Angelina and Brad had agreed that if they ever did for some reason sell the vineyard, they would sell their shares to each other first before allowing anyone else to buy in. Instead, Angelina quietly sold her shares to Yuri Shefler, a Russian oligarch. Brad was not happy. Angelina filed a countersuit for $250 million, claiming that she had in fact tried to sell the shares to Brad first. But wait, why didn't the sale go through? Well, apparently it wasn't as simple as signing over shares of the company. Brad's lawyers wanted Angelina to also sign an NDA that would effectively silence her from ever speaking about Brad's abuse. And for Angelina, that was a step too far. That's why we're getting all this info now. According to Angelina, Brad's history of emotional and physical abuse actually started well before that flight from France to LA. Angelina's cross-complaint claims that Brad was already displaying aggressive behavior before they even boarded the plane. When Angelina asked Brad what was wrong, he told her their son, quote, looks like a fucking Columbine kid, unquote. Hour and a half later, an allegedly intoxicated Brad ordered Angelina to come with him to the back of the plane, brought her into the small airplane bathroom, and began to shout at her, saying she, quote, fucked up this family. He then, quote, grabbed Jolie by the head and shook her, and then grabbed her shoulders and shook her again before pushing her into the bathroom wall and punched the ceiling 4 times. When one of the kids asked him if mommy was okay, Brad allegedly yelled, "No, mommy's not okay. She's ruining this family. She's crazy." That's a lot. After Angelina left the bathroom, one of their children, many people think it was Maddox, their oldest, tried to defend their moms. According to the court documents, Brad allegedly lunged at his own child. To protect her child, Angelina allegedly grabbed Brad from behind to stop him, but he hurled himself against a seat to get her off of him, hurting her elbow and back. The children rushed in and all bravely tried to protect each other. Before it was over, Pitt choked one of the children and struck another in the face. Some of the children pleaded with Pitt to stop. They were all frightened. Many were crying. Angelina claims he continued to sporadically approach them to shout and curse at them. And he allegedly even poured beer on both Angelina and their children. When the plane landed, Angelina allegedly woke Brad up from an intoxicated sleep and told him she and the kids were going to a hotel. According to the cross-complaint, Brad screamed at her and barred her and the kids from leaving the plane for 20 minutes. Even once he finally let them go, he again physically abused one of their children and grabbed and shook Jolie by the head and shoulders as his own children watched and pleaded, "Don't hurt her." The traumatizing ordeal ended with Brad calling the mother of his children a bitch and then turning to his family with kids as young as 8 years old and saying, "Fuck you all." It's fair to speculate that addiction played a major role in Brad's abusive behavior. However, the fact that his kids are still continuing to distance themselves from him all these years later, despite his reported sobriety, feels like there's more under the surface. It's not like there's a definite point where they should just forgive their father and move on. That being said, Brad has suffered almost 0 consequences for his actions aside from his marriage ending, a Russian oligarch encroaching on his beloved winery, and his kids going no contact. Like, he's still wealthy and successful. He's appearing on magazine covers and in major movies. He's producing films and starting a gin company and still hangs out with other Hollywood elites like George and Amal Clooney. Brad certainly has a lot of work to do on himself, and he really needs to be held accountable.